Hi, you're listening to Childless and Moving Onward. This is the place where we talk about thriving in life when you're a woman who is childless, not by choice, regardless of the road that brought you to childlessness. Welcome to episode 63 of Childless and Moving Onward. This is a podcast where I explore the challenges of being childless by circumstance and not by choice. It's a complex journey. I'm Gail Miller, your host. I'm a speaker, life coach, and physician. And like you, most of you, some people are listening for their loved ones, but for most of you, I am also taking the same path, following the same path as you. I am childless by circumstance and not by choice. And although we all have a different reason that we are childless when we don't want to be, the bottom line is that we all feel pain. No single reason is more painful than the other. They are all just different, but they all involve valid feelings. They all involve, unfortunately, shame that we shouldn't feel, but we do. A lot of guilt, a lot of wondering, why me? And it's also really common to think, there's something wrong with me and I'm not worthy. But you are. And we each deserve to recognize our worth and to reach a point in life of finding meaning. And that is possible. Not easy, but it is possible. Takes work. Now, last week I talked about the awkward, to say the least, greetings of Happy Mother's Day. How it not only brings up the pain front and center all over again, even if you've had a little break from it, there it is all over, right? Can you say, I feel a knife to my heart when someone who is well-meaning but utters that kind wish that feels anything but kind when you're childless, not by choice? But it's a societal message that, well, of course, you're a woman. You must be a mom, right? In other words, it's a message that motherhood is the norm, and by default, those of us who don't have children are not the norm. We're not normal. We're less than. But today I want to talk about the fallout from that and from life as a woman without kids in general. It's common to end up with this question, what about me? Women without kids are left out. Sometimes unintentionally and sometimes intentionally. We're left feeling like we don't matter. I've felt it in numerous ways. Being intentional at times. If you've listened before, you may remember the story I've told about going to a women's luncheon, walking up to a small circle of women to introduce myself. In the group was someone I knew of. We'd never formally met. But of course, what's the first question? Do you have kids? And when my answer was no, there was a not subtle change in mood towards me. They became obviously unfriendly in their demeanor towards me, and they physically shifted to exclude me from their circle. And in fact, later on, a friend of mine who I told, I told her what had happened, but she wasn't there. She asked the one woman that I had knew of in that group. She asked her, and this woman said she didn't like me because she doesn't trust any woman who doesn't have kids. Even when my friend explained, though she shouldn't have had to, that my situation wasn't by choice, she dug her heels in because, and her reasoning was, it's always possible to have a child. So my not having one, I'm not somebody she could possibly trust. So yes, people do this in very conscious, deliberate ways. But there are also many ways this is done in not so purposeful intentions. Again, sometimes knowingly and sometimes without even realizing it. So take friendships. It's an all too common scenario where friendships with women who have children are often lost. The same happens with friendships when women start having grandchildren. Because even though you may have been friends with them, they already had kids. This is just a new milestone and it changes everything significantly. So the connection between the woman without children and the woman who now has kids or grandkids can change dramatically. The unfortunate truth is that when friends start having children and you can't, friendships sometimes end or change in a drastic way. Understandably, a new mom's focus is on her child and often on the challenges she's facing, and that's what she wants to talk about. And when you're at the stage in your life where your friends become grandmothers, their attention is on the delight of their new grandchild. A new grandmother's focus may now be on, her being there to help her kids with this baby. So conversations are about the grandkids and how cute they are or the challenges and on and on. And they, like new moms, want to talk about these things and want to often talk about it with other women who've experienced the same thing. But for those of us who have not been so blessed, it is painful to hear when you desperately want a child but can't have one. It's painful to hear about this new milestone, whether it's parenthood or grandparenthood. This new milestone that you won't get to experience, and it can all bring up the pain all over again, full force. The grief, the sense of loss, and the devastation are there front and center once again. In reality, it's painful on both ends because the friend with children or grandchildren wants to talk about them. They're proud, right? They want to share that with others. And often they want to share with others who are experiencing the same thing. She wants to share in her joy with friends. But she also may feel guilt and sadness for you, her childless friend, and for the connection or the loss of connection that happens with it. She may recognize this is not something you want to hear about. Or maybe it is, but she just assumes and kind of stops talking. The communication really begins to dwindle and gets uncomfortable. So the result can be a slow pulling away from friendships on both ends. Of course, when you're on the receiving end of it, it feels like yet another dig at what you don't have. Sometimes it's not something that either is consciously aware of, but it's there. The bottom line is that we're ultimately left wondering, what about me? We're left feeling excluded. We're left feeling like we don't matter. And this isn't limited to just friendships or even to just relationships and families. Who hasn't experienced the exclusion at work when all talk turns to all things kid related? You're left out of the conversation. You're on the outside. And if there are social relationships outside of work that you were a part of, those begin to dwindle too. Because of course, those social situations, the conversations are all about the kids. Or the social situations become about the kids. Everything, it's activities for the kids. And then there are work activity or work related events that are outside of work hours. They're not, you having a private social gathering with your work colleagues. They are social gatherings for work outside of work hours. But those become equally awkward because even then the conversations are kid-centric. And you're left with, but what about me? So let's talk about some ways to navigate this. First, and this is my favorite, I use this all the time, redirect the focus. I always go to things armed with 2 or 3 topics of conversation that will engage everyone, not just a select few, because, right, I know what it feels like to be on the outside, to be excluded from the conversation. I don't ever want someone else to feel that way. I don't ever want someone else to feel the sense of exclusion we feel as women without children. Now, I don't stop all kid-centric conversation. I do think, as painful as it is for me, I do think it's understandable when parents want to share about their kids. Again, even if it is heartbreaking for me, I get it. But I also don't let it continue endlessly, as if I don't matter, as if including me is just not part of things and not a priority. So when it's been enough time and there's a point in the conversation with a natural break, I'll bring up 1 or 2 of the topics of conversation and get it started, start talking about it, and encourage others to join in. It works pretty well. It's pretty uncommon that it doesn't work. It may not work for the whole rest of the event, but it's pretty common that it works for a good amount of time so that you can be part of things, part of the conversation. Now, there are the few times when the response is very brief and they acknowledge, oh, you're going to talk about something else. They answer, and then they just as quickly, they navigate the topic. They take over again and change it back to kid-centric talk. And in those, I use the next strategy. That you can use this next strategy, you can do that without the first, right? But my next strategy is to exit. Sometimes it means exiting that particular group conversation, but sometimes it means exiting altogether, leaving. And I do that to take care of myself. I mean, I'm being excluded from the conversation. Why do I want to stay there? Now, of course, because everything is about judging everybody else, there will be people who consider it rude. But here's the thing. If you can't have conversations that include everyone, that's pretty rude. Does it have to include everyone at every moment? No. But if the majority of the conversations are excluding a particular small group of people and they are not a part of any conversation, that's rude. So I don't feel an ounce of guilt leaving in those situations. Instead, I feel not just a sense of relief, but frankly, I feel pride in myself because it took me a long time to realize that I matter and that I don't have to take on the pain of staying in those situations to keep others from being upset. My discomfort isn't any less important than other people's feelings. I matter, and you do too. So don't feel that sense of, I should stay. I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to upset anybody, because I hear that all the time, and I used to say it myself. Does anybody include you? If you don't want to upset anybody, that means everybody else except you. There's no way to never upset anyone. Someone will always get their feelings hurt or judge harshly. Your discomfort is not less important. You don't want to hurt anybody. That should include you. And it's not possible to keep everybody happy. So take care of yourself. A third strategy is to find support. Find others in the Childless Not by Choice community. Community is key, and there are many opportunities for this. I have one, but there are many support groups. I have a free monthly support group. There are others. I'd love for you to join ours, but there are others. Find support opportunities with other women who understand you. I also have group coaching that is currently underway, but I'll have another cohort in the future. But there are several options out there to join other women experiencing the same pain of childlessness, who want to have interactions with other women who get them, who want to be able to have conversations that are not about kids. So look out there. There are many opportunities to join other women who are childless not by choice. Okay. If you enjoy this podcast, I would love it if you'd leave a review on your favorite podcast listening platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or the others. It only takes a minute. Scroll to the bottom, quickly leave a review, but it makes a huge impact. And so reviews will help me to improve the show, because I want to talk about things that you want to hear about and that are helpful. And it also helps to grow this particular Childless Not by Choice community. So as a thank you, I will send you a $5 Starbucks gift card for your feedback. All you have to do with that, leave the review and then just email a screenshot of your review to gail@pathonward.com. All right, that's it for today. If you hear some strange, heavy breathing, it is because I have one of our dogs. 2 of them were born deaf and blind. Their other senses are very strong. And so when people are walking by our house, he barks. And today is a beautiful day, so lots of people walking by, and he's quite barky today. So he has been on my lap resting, because that keeps him usually quiet and calm. But his sister walked into the room at some point, and he senses that, so he wants to get down and go play with her. So if you've heard some strange sounds, that's what it is. It's my Tigger here. For anybody who's seeing the video, this is Tigger. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back again next week. I appreciate you listening. I hope this episode was helpful to you. If you liked what you heard, schedule a free discovery call with me to see how I can help you to feel worthy and live a fulfilling life. To schedule, click on the link in the episode notes, or you can find it on my website at pathonward.com. You can also see more from me on Instagram at Childless Path Onward and Facebook and YouTube at Path Onward. Until next week, thanks again for listening.